Hey everyone, welcome to Simblethings, a channel where I talk about living with C-PTSD, mental health issues and everything that goes along with that. So today's video is a bit of a random one, but are we all just organic machines? So as humans, we think of ourselves as kind of special and kind of different, and we're full of all this independent thought and we are our own unique things, blah blah blah. But what if we flip that and think of ourselves as just machines that are organic, or we happen to be organic machines, and we think of our bodies it's all just cause and effect, certain hormones are released, we do those things. So when we just think of ourselves as these organic machines and we start to think about how any trauma in our life will have damaged parts of this machine, I feel like it can make it easier to understand our problems and easier to forgive ourselves for those problems. Because if you had a computer and you dropped it from a great height and it worked, but there were some things that were kind of wrong, you'd be like, fair enough, it was a big drop, I'm lucky it's working at all, right? But we don't really think about ourselves in this way. If you've undergone severe trauma, we don't really think, oh, I'm lucky to be able to cope with life in any way, shape or form right now. We're always thinking, oh, we're the worst because we can't do this or that, or we have all these other shortcomings, right? We don't think about how the traumas have damaged us and how that manifests in our day-to-day life in the same way that we would if we just saw physical damage to a machine. Even though many of us have undergone physical abuse, but we still don't forgive ourselves in the same way as we might a machine. So sometimes when I just think about that, and I just think about how things in my body are wrong because of hormones being imbalanced due to being in fear for so long, and huge amount of cortisol and adrenaline being pumped out into my system, and that just ruining things in my body. I'm fair enough, that's going to damage lots of things internally. So when I start to think about my body in this way, and when I start to think about, well, all these problems I have, it's just because the machine's not working properly, right? And some of those things I can fix, some of those things I can't, some of it I just have to live with. But just thinking about my body in a different way and how that influences everything in my life, I guess just by seeing it differently, I find it helpful. I find thinking about a situation in as many different ways as possible to be helpful. And that's any situation you might encounter. But I think it's especially true when we're thinking about ourselves. So having different viewpoints on yourself, what you've been through, what you're going through, what you're trying to do, I think it's always going to be helpful. That kind of stuff, it's worth doing because it's getting our brains to think in a different way, and thinking differently and building new pathways in your brain is definitely something you want to do, because the more new pathways that exist in your brain, the less you're going to use old ones, right? And some of those old pathways are there because of trauma. So there's ways we can shape our brains, I guess. Ways of building new pathways, new ways of thinking, different ways of thinking. And the more differently we think about things, the more perspective we get. And I think that's really important. And I think it helps to be more forgiving and more kind and more understanding with yourself, because you've got more ways to think about yourself. I think that understanding comes a little easier. So I think that might be it for today. There's quite a lot to unpack there, but I think the main thing is just to think about your body isn't some super special, infallible thing. It's basically a machine. It just happens to be built out of skin and bone and muscle and tissue. And because of that, if you get damaged, then there's going to be problems, and those problems are something to be more understanding about in yourself. And however hard that might be, because of sometimes the severity of these issues, it's worth just trying to think about them differently and see them differently, and it might help you. I hope it does. So as always, I'm really thankful for anybody watching the videos, sharing them, liking, subscribing, all that kind of stuff. And until next time, remember there's always help out there. Don't be afraid to reach out. I'll put a link to the C-PTSD Foundation in the description below. And until next time, peace.